This recorded session is dedicated to the continuation of our introductory lecture for module number 1. So far, we have talked about zoology and the branches of science that relate to the study of animals. In addition, we've also discussed um, a bit about the phylogeny of the kingdom Animalia, some of the key characteristics that delineate different groups from one another. And lastly, we've listed down different subfields or subspecializations in the study of zoology. In particular, we looked at invertebrate and vertebrate zoology. So, for this session, we'll talk about the different theories governing or theories that outline or propose the origin of life in our planet. And two things or two theories that we'll not really dive much into are the divine creation theory and the Big Bang theory. So, the divine creation theory relates to supernatural creation based on the biblical texts. So, we propose, or the proponents of the divine creation theory believe that our universe was created by God, a supernatural being, and that all creatures were created out of nothing. No? So essentially we relate this theory with the Christian belief that God made the world, God made the entire universe, and God has a divine power that is responsible, or that is instrumental for the creation of everything, no? Including life. Then we also have the Big Bang theory, which is a theory that explains how the universe, beginning as a single microscopic particle or dot, that later on stretched and expanded until it finally grew into the world that we live in. No? So these are two of the most popular theories. Now we also have the others that I'd like to emphasize. The spontaneous generation theory, the cosmozoic or interplanetary theory, the naturalistic physical-chemical molecular evolution hypothesis, or the Oparin-Haldane hypothesis, and the biogenesis theory. So let's take a look at these last four theories one by one. So, about 200 to 250 years ago, so the idea that living things come from non-living things is a very popular one. No? Um, People believe that animals such as flies come from inanimate matter, inanimate objects like rotten meat, rotten or spoiled meat. No? As you can see in this illustration, actually, this illustration serves as an evidence, or provided the evidence uh, rejecting that idea. No? So, to reject the idea of spontaneous generation, okay, so an experiment was done where an open container with fresh meat was allowed to aerate and open to just open in full view, okay, where maggots form later on because of the flies that went or the flies that feasted on the rotten meat. Then another setup to control or to compare against this one that I've explained or that I've described is a sealed container where there is also a fresh meat inside the glass container, but it is cork sealed, so solid seal. And after the same days of observation, no formation of maggots can be noted. Now, to test further, if because some actually argued it could be in the air, no? So, and since there's no air flow in the second setup, that could be the reason. Now, to combine everything, try to test that hypothesis. So, a gauze-covered container was also created, was also allowed to be observed, and fresh meat was inside it. Airflow is still available. The flies cannot enter. The container cannot really feast on the fresh meat. But what was noticed or what was observed is that on top of the gauze covering, okay, maggots were found. No? So suggesting that maggots are not really coming from, or living things in general, do not come from inanimate matter or objects that are not living organisms in the first place. Okay. Now, another theory on the origin of life is what we call the interplanetary or the cosmozoic theory, also known as the panspermia hypothesis. Okay, so the idea is life came from another planet. Life here in Earth on Earth is did not really start here, but actually came from another place. No, come from space. Okay, and the theory is a popular one, and very popular in fact, and many scientists, astrobiologists are now working on getting more evidence to prove or to disprove this idea, this conjecture on um, the origin of life or life be originating from outside our planet. No? So in this paper here, the one that I've placed the URL on the title. Okay, so this discusses a potential mechanism on how interplanetary life seeded or could seed or how life on a particular planet could come from an interplanetary source. No? So it's believed that based on this hypothesis and this conjecture that for this hypothesis or for this mechanism to work, no, there are a lot of challenges to be overcome by the interplanetary source of life, whatever it is, because the space is a vast, it's a vast environment where there is very high radiation, very low temperature, and of course, as we know it, in our planet, those kinds of conditions are not supportive of life. So to overcome those challenges, or those challenges must be eliminated in order for the panspermia theory to really be a highly probable one. No, so in letter A, it's believed the mechanism explains that um, when impacts happen on a planet, on a space object like a planet or a moon, let's say hypothetically in that planet or moon life is existing, life is present. Okay, organisms or microbes in particular, cellular organisms can cling onto debris, rock debris. Some of them are too big to escape that source planet, indicated by number one, and they just fall back to in the origin planet. While the others are not too big and can be projected to a different location, like what is shown here in number two. Then there's also or furthermore, okay, um, the idea that these debris carrying microbes in them or potential life living organisms with them uh, actually allow the challenges of low temperature, very high radiation, not to affect the material or the living material, the living organism that can be transferred from one location, no, from one potential interplanetary source to another planet. Okay. Um, yeah. Okay. More so, further further talking about the mechanism proposed in the paper that is shown that I have attached here. Okay, so debris of life-bearing rocks resulting from multiple impacts can actually seed multiple planets or multiple space objects, multiple space planets or moons. And it is believed that the more uh, looking at the you know the path, no, the path of a life carrying nomadic object. No? So they call it nomadic object. The material, interplanetary source of life. So they, according to in the paper, it is called a nomadic object. So this nomadic object kicked out from its original source system and is traveling aimlessly or traveling randomly. Okay, if you look at the path of that object, that path may contain or may possess debris that may contain the life material that it possesses. And planets that are either with very short orbits or very fast in terms of their move if the in terms of the revolution around a central star. Okay, the more that they are able to contact that path of a nomadic object potentially carrying life material, the more that they can be inoculated somehow, by these interplanetary source of living material. Okay. Then we also have our theory on the molecular evolution of life, the Oparin Haldane theory. Okay, so here you can see you can see a sea vent, a mountain vent below underwater. Then you can see sunlight. Then there is electric current. No? So the idea of the Oparin Haldane theory is that so just to introduce it first, no, the Oparin Haldane theory is actually born out of two independent scientists, or it's actually an idea of two independent scientists, no. But just to put everything in a nutshell. So the theory proposes that the molecules of life, the organic molecules of life, could be formed from abiogenic or non-living materials in the presence of an external energy source such as light, electricity, electric current, temperature, radiation. Okay, so essentially the organic molecules that we know comprising the biomolecules of life came from abiogenic sources. So to further prove or to prove or simulate the possibility, okay, of that theory. So there's what we call the Miller-Urey experiment, okay, which is essentially a synthesis experiment. So it's a chemistry-based experiment. Um, it was carried out to simulate the conditions of the primitive Earth. The primitive Earth, the pre-life, pre-biotic Earth in terms of its atmosphere, in terms of its waterscapes, no? And it is one of the successful experiments demonstrating the synthesis of organic compounds from inorganic material, from inorganic constituents in a scenario that is prebiotic, no? That is without life. So here you can see external sources such as discharge of spark, okay, temperature, the boiling water representing the oceans, okay, and it made use of several material or several compounds such as methane, ammonia, water, hydrogen gas, and when an electric current was supplied, okay, it resulted in the production of biomolecules, particularly amino acids. So the water containing organic compounds are shown here in the sorry shown here in the red portion and the bottom portion of the figure. Okay. So primitive Earth, with with external energy sources and inorganic constituents, could potentially give rise to the biomolecules, the components of the biomolecules of living organisms. Then there is, of course, the biogenic theory or the biogenesis theory, which simply is which simply discusses that living organisms, okay, are arising from other living organisms. Okay, so in contrary, or I think this is somehow within the same time period as the the spontaneous theory, the spontaneous origin of life, no, theory, that life came from non-living material. So this is actually an experiment. This one is a popular experiment called the Swan Flask experiment by Louis Pasteur, one of the most accomplished microbiologists of his time. Okay, so this experiment proved that, and it proved that germ particles, microbial particles in the air can cause the spoiling of broth, and a broth that was placed in these two setups. No, disproving the idea of spontaneous generation. So here, initially the two setups, they started the same. The broth was boiled to ensure that all organisms present in the broth were killed. No organism survived. Okay, and both of them had curved or bent flasks, bent neck of their flasks necks. And here you can see that the curve of the flask prevents outside air from entering it, and no contamination happened. On the other hand, in the second scenario, when the swan neck portion of the flask was removed and the broth was allowed to stay open and allowed to be aerated, it is seen that later on microorganisms grew into the broth, suggesting that those microorganisms in the air are responsible for contaminating the broth and most likely, when they had the chance to be incorporated in the broth, they produce, or they reproduce. No? Okay. So now we've talked about all the we talked about the theories of the potential theories discussing the origin of life. We'll go on and proceed with discussing the different characteristics of living organisms. So in our on-site lecture, we talked about the different groupings of animals, the different kinds of scientific studies that are dedicated to each group or to each type. No? So in this part of the lecture, we'll talk about the high level concepts or characteristics of animals that classify them or allow them to be classified as living organisms. So I think this could be a bit longer already. So I will cut the recording at this juncture.